Hello again and thanks for joining. So this is a model set which we've not had on this channel before. I think it's called SachsenModelle, I think. Hopefully I got that pronunciation correct. It's quite rare that I come across these models, but I have had one of these in my collection before. It was a tanker wagon and it was really quite detailed. This is a pack of 6 wagons and it's number 14104 and it represents goods wagons from the Epoch 1 era, and I think they're all German. So we're going to have a look at these today. Again, this is another second-hand purchase of mine, and this box has got some shelfware. You can see it along the edges here, and the flaps here are coming apart a little bit, so it has had a bit of a hard life. But let's get this open and have a look at the models inside. So we've got all 4 models in plastic sleeves, and it looks as though we've got some instructions underneath. So let me get all of these out, and then we can have a look at them in more detail. So this leaflet was underneath all the models, and it has quite a lot of words here written, and I'm not quite sure what they are because I don't speak German and it's only in German. And out of all of this, the only thing that isn't German is this down here, which is in German, English and French, and it says we reserve the right to change the construction and design. So obviously legal stuff has to be in all 3 languages, but everything else can just be in German, I guess. Anyway, let's have a look at the models. So each of the models are in quite nice, neat plastic trays here with a lid on top, and they seem to be held pretty securely inside there. So I'll get all of these out and then we can have a look at them in detail. So here we have all the wagons out of the packaging, and they do look really quite cool, and there's a lot of character in them and differences between them. But one of the things I did notice when I was taking them out is that they seem very brittle, and I'll show you some of the damage that's happened to the barrel wagon at the back, and also the steps on the guards van had fallen off as well. And you'll also notice that the brakeman's cab is exactly the same moulding on 5 of these wagons. So it's starting to feel like this is a bit of a budget set. Anyway, let's have a look at them close up. So we'll start off with the tanker wagon here. So this model here has this brakeman's cab that I was talking about, along with this railing set here. This is very brittle plastic, so it could break quite easily. It's quite detailed though, there's a lot of deep relief here, but these railings are very thick. I'm not sure if it's thick like that in real life. It's got some nice representation of buffers at the front here. It's a really nice part of the moulding on the chassis. The brakeman's cab doesn't have any glazing, you can see straight through there, but it does have a different colour roof to the rest of it, and it looks as though that's just been painted silver. The tank is a nice moulding here. It's got a lot of nice rivet detail all the way around it, and there's no obvious moulding marks on it either. I do like the silver part in the middle of this tank, which looks as though it has been painted on and it's been done very nicely. There's printing on this model which has been done very nicely, even down to the small writing underneath here, and there's also writing underneath the ladder as well. You can also see some printing on the chassis, and the chassis itself is nicely detailed. It's very well defined, and there's some rivet detail there, along with some really nice detail here on the springs, the axle boxes and the brake blocks, which are in line with the wheels. On this tank wagon we have some steps going up along with a handrail, and then at the top we have these handrails as well. So these are very delicate and they could easily break, but it's good to see that this one is okay. Up here as well there's some platforms giving the impression of some wood, and it has also this additional part here of this little circular handle as well, and this hatch as well has also been moulded very well. So there's a lot of nice detail on this little wagon. There's another part added in here for the drain, and then you can see some more rivet detail as we move towards the end of the tank. The chassis is very delicate as well. I'm actually quite impressed with that. It looks really good with all the bracing. And then here we have a coupling. It's a metal one, and it's attached onto a cantilevering NEM pocket as well. Underneath the chassis there's some really good representation of the brake here. It's quite a simple chassis on this wagon, but the bracing has all been represented, and there's nice detail of little bolts and all the brackets that make up the brake gear. So not a bad tanker wagon. Let's have a look at the other one. So this is very similar to the first. It's got the same brakeman's area at the front and it's the same colour. The only difference here obviously is that the tank doesn't have the silver part in the middle, and it has some different printing down here on this panel here, and it has this additional panel at the end here with some more writing on it. And the printing here has been done very well. One other thing that's different on this tank is it has these parts here. I'm not quite sure what they're for, but they've been moulded in here. It isn't on the other one, but there is a lot of detail around there, including these little tiny rivet details. I'll just compare it with the other one. So these 2 tank wagons are looking pretty good. Let's move on to the next one. So we have 2 flat wagons here, again with exactly the same brakeman's cab. This time it's just got a little graphic printed on there, but aside from that it's exactly the same moulding, just a different colour, and the roof is a slightly different silver colour. So that part just clips into the rest of the wagon, and you can see it moving here a little bit. The rest of the wagon is a really nice open wagon with some really nice plank detail. The wood effect there is very good, and it has really good representation of these doors with a lot of detail, the little handle and all the rivet detail as well. This one's chassis also has printing on it as well as the body itself, and that printing has been done really well on all of these little transfers. There's a little handle here. Unfortunately this one is broken, but that's part of the main moulding, very delicate obviously, and you can see things like this little part here which is part of the moulding as well has been added in. And that's a really nice attention to detail. You can also see it has this little handle moulded in here as well. Again, another part that's prone to getting broken off, but this one is still there, which is really good. And we've got some more printing on the back here. I think this is the back door for these ones. Looking inside the bed, it's been painted grey, and it has things like rivet detail on the side here as well as the plank detail. And often on these wagons you don't see any detail on the sides because of the way it's been moulded, you just see detail on the floor. But it's good to see that this one has that. You can see some moulding marks on the deck though, but if you were to put a load into this wagon, that would certainly solve that problem. Underneath, the chassis is unsurprisingly almost identical to the tank wagons, and it has this nice additional part that's been put in for the brake gear, and again cantilever couplings in NEM pockets. Wheels are very free rolling on these models as well. The other wagon is exactly the same as the first one in terms of moulding and details, but it does have different graphics on it. I guess it's just the name of the owner of this wagon is different on this one. And here's the two wagons together. So this is kind of a baggage and brakeman's wagon, and I've seen this design before from other manufacturers. I've had some reviews on this channel in fact. The steps going up here are quite interesting. They don't have a handrail. I'm not sure whether that is because a part has fallen off or whether it's meant to be actually like that in real life, and if so then that would be a bit of a precarious journey for somebody to take up onto the roof. At this end we've got some really nice clear transfers here, but I do see we have a bit of a problem just up here in the roof, because it's just lifting off the body shell a little bit. So I'm not sure whether it's a moulding problem or whether it's just indicative of the age of this model. It's moved a little bit. Down the side is a fair amount of detail here. So again, some really good printing here, but it's not quite as crisp as it should be on a moulding, I think. It does have a good representation of the latch there and some railings, but these are just moulded into the main piece of plastic. And the windows aren't 100% flush fit, but they're not too bad. This one here has a representation of grills on it, and it has even a little brown on the crossbars there, which is really nice. You can also see the printing down here on the chassis is very good, and there's a lot of detail and numbers printed there. And then we have these two doors at this end, which have got printing on them as well. And we've got additional little windows up here. One of the things that's a bit of a problem on this particular model is that these steps are very loose. They're actually going to just fall off any moment. So I think these need glued back in. But it's nice that this is an additional part which has been moulded. At this end of the model it's quite plain, but we do have the same printing here as we've seen on the other end. And we've got two really nice windows with glazing on them as well. This side of the wagon is the same as the other side, except that this window here is blanked out, possibly a toilet. Up here on the roof, it's a bit dusty, this one, but it's a nice moulding. It's got this part here, which I think might actually be a lamp, and it's got a little cable running all the way to the back. It's got another air vent here, just above the toilet. And then on this top part, we've got what looks like a little chimney and another little lamp with a bit of cabling there as well, moulded in, which is really quite nice. This is in matte dark grey, and it's got a nice texture on it as well. Underneath, we've got couplings again in NEM pockets, which articulate very well to keep it coupled up. We've got some nice representation of buffers. They're not sprung or anything, they're just moulded in one piece onto the chassis, but they look really good. And then the chassis has lots of wood planking details moulded in, as well as these extra brake parts and this tank added onto it as well. So it's looking really good underneath here. It's got similar axle boxes, springs and brake block detail as the other wagons. One thing I did notice about this is it has a weight inside it which has come loose and is rattling about, as well as something else rattling about inside here, so possibly this has had a bit of a hard life at some point. I'll need to glue the steps back on at some point. I'll just use some polystyrene cement to do that. Now we come to the last wagon, and it's this barrel wagon, and I think this one's had a bit of a checkered history because we have a missing buffer here. It's been broken off, and the brakeman's cab looks as though it's had some weathering applied to it at some point. It's not been done very well, unfortunately. It is the same moulding as we've seen already, but it's in grey this time, and again it's got the silver roof. These barrels are moulded in plastic, but they've got some really nice detail on them, and it's got this strapping over the top including these name boards, and that's a piece of metal which has been bent over the top of the barrels and attached to the chassis here. This is very similar to a Pico design. I did a review of a 3-pack of Pico wagons recently, and the barrel wagon looked very similar to this one. It might actually even be the same moulding. It's got some nice printing on this panel here, and also on the metal straps going over the top, and also on the chassis as we've seen with other ones as well. One of the other problems we have with this wagon is that the ladder just pulls straight off it. There's nothing actually holding that on. I think that's maybe needing a little bit of glue there just to help it. And at this side we have a broken ladder again. That seems to be missing as well. It's not in the packaging, so that's a bit of a shame. So this wagon has some nice planking here on the deck, and that extends onto the middle between the barrels. And underneath we also have some nice planking and also the brake gear as well. And I think this is just standard, very similar to the ones we've just seen. Again, cantilevered NEM pocket couplings as well. So there you go, 6 different wagons that we've had a look at. Let's see how much these weigh. The barrel wagon weighs 58 grams, although it is missing a part, so it might be 59 or maybe 60 grams. The flat wagon is 36 grams. The tanker wagon, 51 grams. And finally, the brakeman's wagon, which is 62 grams. So this wagon set I've got mixed views about. I do actually like the style of wagons of this era in Epoch 1. They're quite characterful and each one seems to have its own personality. I really like the tank wagons here. I think they're very cool, they look very interesting, and they've got a lot going for them. The barrel wagon as well is a favourite. I always like barrel wagons as well, and this one is pretty cool. I like all the words on the side of it. It really looks quite bright and impressive. But what lets this set down, I think, is the quality of the plastic used in the mouldings. It seems to be quite brittle and it's breaking a lot. Some of these wagons are suffering more than others, but it's indicative of what could happen to these wagons if you don't take care of them. I think the brake baggage car is a bit of a disappointment. I've seen other manufacturers do that one much better. And I think overall the feel of this isn't one of a quality product. It's more just a mass-produced, almost toy-like product which just has a lot of detail to it. So therefore, would I recommend this set to you? I think possibly yes, possibly no. I think if it's a good price, I think you could get it and you have some nice wagons to add to your collection. But I think as display models, they're not quite up there with some of the other models, especially ones you can get nowadays. I think this set has been around for a little while. So the age-old saying is, you pays your money and you takes your choice. And I think that applies to these wagons if you're interested in buying them. Let me know what you thought about my analysis in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Also, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel grow. I'll put some of these on the turntable so you can see all the way around. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. See ya!